There's a lot of unknowns, and I think it's the unknowns that are terrifying. And it's me. It's me on that operating table.
We're developing the bioartificial pancreas that can potentially cure type 1 diabetes.
It's become a joke that the cure is always 5 years away. But if it's so close, what is taking so long? Do you feel guilty that the cure is always 5 years away?
I don't feel guilty. I feel hopeful.
When you're doing clinical research, there's always the first patient.
That's Maren.
Hi.
Greg.
Nice to meet you. I have some extreme lows, which cause me to have seizures.
I'm going blind.
It takes 10 to 20 years to develop a new drug.
This is my life's work.
We need the investment to prove to you that this works.
We have 180 days of cash.
What happens if you don't raise the money?
Shut the doors.
Part of science that I'm trying to come to grips with on my own is it even working?
Yeah.
Because if it works, it's like winning the lottery.
We still don't know how it'll work in people. And that's why we're all here, to make it work in people.
32 years of the waiting. Hoped and prayed for this for a long time.
I don't know if I can keep doing this anymore.
It's just been really hard on them. But they're paving the way for others, so.
We're talking about my life here. I'm not afraid of death, but I need to be here for my daughter. That's what this is about.
How much is riding on this?
Everything. Sorry.
It has been more than I ever expected.
You're showing efficacy.
To see it come this far, it's amazing.
I'd like to think I'm a pioneer. Where you read in textbooks, she was the first. So, fingers crossed.
Exposed, but I was at your event on Friday.
Oh, good. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it was a very, very beautiful event. It was very special. I got to come to the reception and enjoy myself. And I brought a friend because it all ended up on the same weekend as my son's graduation the next morning.
Wow.
So, and I moved, I live in the Hudson Valley now. So after, decades of living in the city. And so I miss going to film events. So, the premiere of the human trial just happened to, work out perfectly. So.
Oh, good. I know it's a big graduation weekend.
Yeah.
All of our nieces and nephews seem to be graduating from something right now.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track.
If they're graduating from 10th grade, it doesn't matter. It's supposed, well, we're still in the pandemic, obviously, but everyone's doing weddings and graduations. But I'm really happy that you could be there. It was very special. It was the first time we had an audience like that for this film because of the pandemic.
Right.
So yeah, it was pretty special.
Yeah.
You're friends with Simon Kamuri, right?
Yeah. I mean, I worked for a spell at POV. This is going back, 7 or 8 years, I think, by now. But yeah, and he's just one of the nicest guys out there. So yeah. It was such a wonderful period to be able to work there, and yeah, I just very good memories.
No, I love that show. And I love Simon. He was the president of the IDA. That's where I met him out here in LA.
Okay. Right.
Of course.
Yeah.
And, recently retired.
Oh, he did retire from there.
Correct. Sorry. He's definitely
just producing
so
film,
busy.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah. I know he's still going strong. In fact, he's driving across the country right now to go to New York for 2 months.
Really?
Yeah. He's leaving today.
Oh, wow. Okay. I have to get him back on one of these days, but
yeah, no, he'd appreciate that. He's, amazing guy.
I agree. Yeah, he's been on the show before too. Well, I on the other hand was just started feeling myself because I got my second booster 2 days ago. But the thing is the pharmacist said you're due for your shingle shot. And I said, well, okay, but what's going to happen? Like, am I going to feel, because I work, I have a job and oh, you'll feel a little tired, but you should be okay. Yeah, they left out the part about feeling like you got run over by a tractor and then backed over. I mean, I was like, yesterday was not easy.
Was that the shingles vaccine you just said?
Yes.
I haven't got it. It was on my list of to-dos. Like, I've gotten every vaccine under the planet, really.
Right. Well, I don't know if you're eligible.
Oh, because I'm type 1, maybe?
No, I wasn't thinking that, although maybe that's a thing. No, I was just thinking maybe age-wise, but I wasn't sure.
Oh, that's nice to hear. I'm over 50. No, I'm eligible.
Okay.
Especially with diabetes.
Right.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah, I'm glad I got it, but I would have spread them out. But I'm glad it's behind me now. I have to get the second one of that at some point in the next few months. But then I can look forward to the flu shot. No, I know. But these shots keep us
more or less healthy. You don't have any, you're right. I think it might've been in New York, and it must've been at the after party, although it was outdoors. We wanted to be careful about that, but you can only do so much, right?
Right. No. And we don't have to dwell on that anyway. I'd rather dwell on your film. I'd rather
better.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say the screening, I know there were a lot of immune compromised people in attendance is my assumption.
Yeah.
So, wearing masks was a no-brainer, and, that was good. So it was definitely not, I don't think you would have gotten it there. But
I agree. It was very carefully orchestrated. Hey, do you mind? I just need to check my blood sugar.
Yeah. Well, what am I going to say?
Yes.
No. Yeah. Go right ahead, please. Okay. Well, it's great. That was the prologue. And my show is very casual. So I don't even, people often ask, like, after 10 minutes, have we started? I mean, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing,
Oh, no, you're like a true verite filmmaker. Always rolling.
Yeah, it is. Well, there is some of that. If you just say and start, all of a sudden people shift. Right? Yeah. So I mean,
get the best stuff.
Yeah, it was Frederick Wiseman who said to me, right. Just let people play with the camera, or if they're curious, let them hold it and engage with it, because you can't pretend you're not there. But the sooner they get beyond the cameras as foreign weird object, the better.
Yeah, and that takes a lot of time though to establish that faith.
Right. Yeah, but he's got nothing but time apparently, because his movies are 3 to 5 hours usually. So he's shooting a lot of material. But anyway, your documentary is called Human Trial. It is currently out as we speak. It's right. What do we do? Is it playing theatrically anywhere, or is it?
Yeah, it is playing theatrically. So it's playing theatrically in LA, New York, and somewhere in between. Sorry, Ohio. Plus, perhaps more importantly, we're playing virtual cinema. So you can go to our website and watch now, click on it, and Lemley and showcase these online streaming platforms for theatrical. They're keeping it up there indefinitely, which is kind of cool.
Right. But does that suggest that it's on a schedule, or is it still on demand like most streaming, where you just play when you want to?
Yeah, it's not streaming yet. It won't stream on the SVOD, TVOD world until November, till the fall, in fact.
So when you visit those sites virtually, it is on a schedule, those screenings?
Oh, yes. You know what? That's a really good question. I'm not sure.
I don't know why it would be, but then maybe that's the difference between what a typical conventional streaming. I don't, but I've complicated, but maybe I understand there's a publicist on the call here. So Emma, if you know, maybe.
Sure. Yeah. Could you just repeat what was the question?
Yeah, sure. As far as virtual screenings right now, the Human Trial is available on Lemley's virtual theater, and I guess maybe another one. But I'm just wondering, do you know if those are on a particular schedule, or are they also just like any other streaming service? You just push play when you want to.
Oh, okay. Now I get the question. I'm Not entirely sure,
All right.
but I can ask Abramarama. They're
All
also
right.
available on the Human Trial website.
Right. Okay.
But it's not, yeah, it's different than on demand.
Yeah. Well, we urge people to go to the theater anyway, for God's sake. Right. I'm a theater guy, but no, well, I will say though, this film, you know, is also such a advocacy of, you know, ultimately ending type 1 diabetes, if not diabetes altogether. I should have mentioned the next morning after your screening of the premiere that I attended, my uncle and aunt came in for my son's graduation because my parents aren't available to do it anymore. But my uncle, Bob, who is type 1 diabetic. So we had lunch the next day and I was telling him about your film. I should send him to see it, you know.
I think that would be great. I mean, I don't know how long your uncle has had type 1. A long time?
Since I've known him. I mean, he's my aunt's second husband. So it's been about 35 years I've known him, but yeah.
Right. And so, you know, I hope you do send him to watch it because I know for many people, it's with this disease, it's really cathartic. And I think people who've suffered quietly maybe feel like they have some agency to really talk about their feelings around the disease.
I have a question though and it's not to challenge the premise at all but I do remember you saying during the panel after the Q&A that you felt that this disease, and it is, you know, a disease. I mean, I don't know why anybody would consider it anything else, but that there is a stigma attached to it. And I wanted to know why you felt that way, because yes, it's invisible. So maybe there is that, maybe it's a different kind of stigma than we're typical. It's not like people don't have, or don't have concern about anybody with type 1, right? Or they're being cynical about it. Or are they? I don't know. What's your experience as somebody who has it?
I think there's a lot of stigma around diabetes. Diabetes includes type 1 and type 2. And, you know, type 2 diabetes is not an autoimmune disorder. It's caused by being overweight, older, or just genetically predisposed to developing it. I do not distinguish between the two diseases because the long-term complications are the same. I don't blame anybody who has diabetes. And I think people look at type 2 as a lifestyle disease that they kind of deserve. Like, you're a smoker. You deserve lung
It's
cancer.
short-sighted as hell, isn't it?
Oh, it's so short-sighted. And there is a stigma attached to it. You know, I was giving you the stats on the panel that millions of people die from this each year.
You said maybe like 6 million. Is that possible? You said that?
I said 6.7 million.
Okay. All right.
In 1 year, 2021. Just absorb that. That's astounding. You know, I think we all get inured to statistics, especially when we're being handed them down throughout the pandemic. But I just want people to absorb that and to understand that this disease is fatal, and that even people in a developed country like the United States are rationing insulin because they can't afford it. So people aren't doing as well as people think. And this disease should be cured, type 1 and type 2.
Thank you. I mean, I'm evolving my own learning and understanding as you speak about it. Just nothing that I have to alter my empathy or sympathy for people with diabetes, but and I sense also you're not asking for that. You're just asking for maybe get out of our way. Let's find the solution. The film talk is essentially about the stem cell approach to cell replacement, right? I may be a little clumsy in how I describe it, so I'll hand it back over to you so you do a better job. But
sure. You know how I love to explain it?
Yeah.
Is that one donated 5-day blastocyst, which is a microscopic embryo, was donated from an IVF clinic in San Diego by a couple who ticked donate to science. That little cell was then cultivated by this biotech company in San Diego to become an islet cell when it's implanted in the body. So essentially, this cell line from one donated embryo that would have been destroyed anyway, this can cure everyone on the planet with insulin dependent diabetes, not just type 1, because a lot of type 2s are on insulin. So essentially, this could help 220 million people. One donated embryo. So this is humongous. And when I was filming and I saw this nitrogen tank, which where the stem cell line was housed, it was just like looking at the Holy Grail being pulled out of this nitrogen canister, you know, with all the white smoke and stuff. And it was like, whoa, this is incredible.
You saw it was manna from heaven. You saw the future, and it was, it seems from watching the human trial, again, it's currently available for to see in theaters and streaming or on some
at home virtual.
At home virtual, yeah.
At home.
Yeah, the official language is in theaters and watch now at home virtual cinema release.
Okay, so we don't have to get too caught up in any other details, but I felt that the film's message by the end was that we're headed towards it's inevitable. Let's put it that way. The five-year language, we can sort of, you know, say what you want to. I mean, some people are gonna. It becomes like thoughts and prayers. It becomes a bit of a platitude or an expression that just ends up having a negative effect. You know, when you say we see the cure within 5 years, it becomes this cliche, right?
No, I totally agree, Adam. And I think that sadly, nothing's inevitable about getting to the cure. You know, it's like sadly, nothing's inevitable about, you know, curtailing gun violence. Right? Like we have to keep
commitment to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, the science is there. That's what I mean by this 5-year promise that doesn't have to be hollow anymore. Yeah. The science has been proven to work in people. They have to accelerate the clinical trials in order to get it to the people who need it. But clinical trials are really expensive. And I think that, you know, we need to get the government, the NIH, to get really behind this type of research and accelerate it. And we saw this during the pandemic. We saw what was possible during COVID-19 with the development of the vaccine, and how quickly the shots in arms came about within 6 months. That's incredible, but it's not a miracle. It's not inevitable. The science was there and it just needed to be pushed out, and governments collaborated. Corporations weren't motivated just by profit. They collaborated. There was a public health emergency that galvanized the world. And this can be done again, because I would argue diabetes is a public health emergency.
And your film follows 2 people in the clinical trial to get to where we are
what they're testing is basically implanted cells.
Implanted cells to see if they will eventually produce the insulin.
Yep.
Right. So there's 2 subjects that go through this trial, and one is Greg, and the other is Maren. Is that her name? Maren?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Maren.
Okay. Yeah. And we you know, I know that they were talking about getting somebody. It's nice. I like to talk to you. It's great. You know, people should see the film. They can meet them both. They were both really exceptional people. You know, what they went through. It's a true test of many things. But yeah, I mean, you really felt.
I have to say, and I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, cut me off, please.
I didn't have a choice in casting. We were, you know, for about 1.5 years looking for a clinical trial site that would let us in, that would let our cameras in. And most were very challenging to get access. The University of Minnesota gave us access because people in Minnesota are nice. And the Minnesota nice, right? And that's when we met patient 1 and 2. We didn't know who the patients were going to be. I had a coffee with them at a picnic table outside the hospital. And when I met them, I was like, oh my God, thank God, they're eloquent and they're interesting. And then we started filming, and I realized they were even more interesting than I'd first thought. But we were lucky. We were really lucky.
And they both, of course, you get a firsthand verite and just inside, fly on the wall, however you want to express it, look at exactly what it means to be someone who has type 1 diabetes, and the volatility and the unpredictability and the level of anxiety that you go through on a daily basis, if not hourly, constantly, and how stressful that must be. And you really get and then there's the spirit that shines through as well. And that they both put themselves through this trial is pretty amazing, because built into the volunteering for the trial is you just don't know the results until they tell you. So you have to walk around going through all these surgical procedures for months, not knowing how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, I think it was really difficult on these two patients, because diabetes is a strange disease in some ways. We can monitor, the patients can monitor, almost on a minute by minute basis where our blood sugars are. I can look at my phone, right? Case in point, here's my phone. I just turned it off. But I can look at my blood sugars, and I hope we're still connected here. And I get immediate feedback. There's an immediate feedback loop. Oh, you can't see because I have the blur on. But nonetheless, it's an immediate response to what's going on in your body. So these two patients, when they were getting their implanted cells, felt like they had firsthand knowledge before anybody, because they were looking at their blood sugars constantly. So they were almost being fooled into believing that it was working. There is something called a white coat syndrome, where when you're in a clinical trial, you get a lot of attention paid to you. And these guys were under a microscope, literally. So their diabetes control would have improved anyway, even if they hadn't had those implanted cells. So this, what it did was it messed with them emotionally, and mentally. They kept thinking it was working, and it wasn't. At least Marin was more convinced they were working. Greg was more of a skeptic, and brought in the idea that it could be the placebo happening.
Yeah. Marin has like 11 children or some crazy amount of children, so she's got to keep. I mean, no, I get 6, right? Some of whom are adopted. She's an amazing person. Here's the thing that I guess the next part that I kind of want to find out. You as the filmmaker had to remain. You're in the middle of this gap here between the scientists and the patients, the trial patients, right? They don't talk to, there's a wall there, and you have to kind of grapple that, or, right? You have to kind of ride that between the two. Did you have more information than you could let on?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. That was the hardest part about making this film.
Right.
That was one of the hardest parts.
Because you also had to get the trust of, right? You create relationships. And I'm not saying these two people, it seemed like a no-brainer to create relationships with them, because they're both these, really amazing, warm people. But then you have to hold back information from them.
Exactly.
You probably know that.
Yeah, no, exactly. The patients knew that I was in constant contact with ViaCyte, the sponsor of the trial. Right. They knew my position was in the middle. They knew that I was getting intel, if you will, about if it was working or not. This was really challenging, because it wasn't just getting the trust as one does in a documentary from, a subject like ViaCyte. The responsibility was huge, because if I relayed any information outside of the paradigm or the structure of the clinical trial, I could put it into jeopardy.
Right.
So if I messed up, I could have jeopardized the integrity of the study. And so there was constant pressure, and there were some so-called leaks amongst, some of the nursing staff. And it was at one point blamed on the film crew. And that was wrong. It wasn't us, but it was a very touchy situation. And not only would we jeopardize the trial, we would jeopardize our access. Because the biotech company was going to pull access anytime they thought we were, releasing information we shouldn't. So it was nerve-wracking.
Yeah. Wow. All sorts of dimensions to this, right? All these relationships. And we do get to know the scientists, by the way. We do get to know them, and they turn out to be human beings. It's just amazing. What a shocker. They're human beings with all sorts of spectrum of emotions. And so that was really great, too. I thought they came across they're pretty amazing, too.
You know what, Adam, what they told me, like the CEO who's more stoic about things, said, I don't have a stress gene. And I thought to myself, oh, crap, that's terrible. You don't have a stress gene, because I need you to have a stress gene. I need you to pop on camera. And, I couldn't necessarily penetrate that. That's what makes Paul a good CEO. But certainly the other researchers were very much emotionally involved in the filmmaking process. And frankly, they were exhausted by their own research and what they were up against. So I think everyone was feeling pretty vulnerable at different points. And the fact that the scientists allowed me to see their vulnerabilities was amazing. And it, definitely helped.
It's cinematic too. It'll have a lot of drama. I mean, the film works. I mean, you get the patients, but the scientists, it's a nice tension of, and it was sort of some of the best moments were getting the camera can see through it to people, and that's always, and your husband, Guy, who, again, wasn't feeling well today, but he shot Guy Mossman. He shot the film, right?
He shot the film, and I think he did a great job. He was up against putty-colored boardrooms and, blue ORs and, not the most exciting visuals, but I think he did really well. And he really pushed the stylized shots, the macro shot of the eye when Greg, patient 2, is going blind. And also, I think the surgery scenes are really beautifully shot. And he made time to get those stylized shots, which often in verite filmmaking, you let fall to the wayside because you're constantly wanting to follow the action. But, we had a big enough crew. We sometimes had a gaffer. We sometimes had a grip, an AC. We normally had an AC at least to help us with these dolly shots and but I think that Guy's best strength is just watching and being at the right place at the right time. I think a DP in verite has to be a really good listener, follow the action, and look for those, really good telling shots. Like, for example, Greg's Christmas tree, he had like an air freshener up there as a little tree. And, that just speaks.
I was a pine scented.
Yeah, definitely pine scented. And he always wears mismatched socks. And, it may seem like an obvious shot, but I think when you're, trying to focus on the doctor speaking to the patient, you might not be aware or capture those insert shots very well. But I think he was good. And the patients, everyone loved him.
The name of the documentary again is The Human Trial. It's co-directed by Lisa Hepner and Guy Mossman, and it's available to watch right now. After we finish in a few moments, you can go watch it. And if you or anyone is living with type 1 diabetes, this is an important film to see. And I think ultimately will give you a lot of hope, if not inspire you. I look forward to the sequel, The Cure.
I hope there is no sequel. I hope the sequel is, like a press conference with light bulb.
Right. Well, it's okay. The epilogue.
Sorry, I don't mean to mince words.
No, it's okay. I'm just making jokes,
Yeah. Oh, I love it. No, it's the epilogue. You're absolutely right. It's an epilogue, and I got to tell you,
or postscript, right? Yeah. Well,
We were cutting the film. We kept having to change the title card at the end because the science kept evolving. We had to make another DCP because of it.
The what?
Oh, so we did a digital output, the DCP.
Oh, DCP.
Yeah, DCP.
That's how fast the science is changing, is what you're saying, right? So
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, that's good. That's very good. Really nice to meet you. And you're the podcaster dream guest. You know, you're hit the ground running. You've got, you know, a lot to say. Just very nice talking to you and learning, and I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. I love being on your show and everything that you do for us filmmakers. It's really important that and I don't know if you do narrative stuff as well. If you know,
I do. I'm talking to I have to edit now, but I'm talking to Gia Coppola later, who's the granddaughter of Francis Ford, niece of Sophia, cousin to Jason Schwartzman.
Wait, and who's she?
The
dating?
Dynasty.
Don't forget who she. It sounds like you should say who she's dating.
Gia, who she's dating? I don't know.
No, but
no, she has a.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so I do some narrative, but I mean, this is, you know, just in response to your very nice thing to say, but I think, especially coming out of the last, where we are now as a nation, we're you know, it's at a point where I feel like if I can just contribute a positive voice out there in my microscopic way, I should do that. So I've kind of trying to pivot. I am trying to pivot the show and be a more discriminating about what I do in order to, like I say, kind of, you know, just choose things that are going to just contribute in a positive way. I mean, so like you as a filmmaker, you know, you do what you do, you know.
There is definitely a lot going on that is not very
it's overwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to stay grounded and hopeful.
It's a terrifying time to be, I mean, it's without getting dramatic about it, but it is a very scary time, very scary. And half the country doesn't know it, you know, so.
Right. Well, I hope that, you know, this film and films similarly with an impact and a message can be seen more widely and, you know, without sounding condescending, but educate the audience because there's so much misinformation out there.
Good point. And it's welcome, you know, I mean, to be, you know, to learn and to be, just to set the record straight. It's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a great thing and very much needed right now.
Thank you. And we'll do it again next time.
Okay, we'll do it for the epilogue.
Right, exactly. All right.
Thanks so much, Adam.
Thank you. Yeah, and have a good evening.
Yeah, you too.
All right.